Didn't say.
Danny.
Okay, it's recording. So this is the policy subcommittee meeting on October 30th. We'll just go around the room and see who's here. Rob, can we start with you, please?
Sure. Rob Mezzanotte, Assistant Superintendent.
Stephanie Russo, Human Resource Director.
Andrew Hennies, Attorney for the Committee.
Erin Earl, School Committee Chair.
Kenny Duba, Superintendent.
Jennifer Lima, school committee member. Rachel?
Oh, sorry. Dr. Rachel Santo, Director of Special Services.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Did everybody have an opportunity to review the minutes from the last meeting on October 16th? Okay, just for clarification, the voting members of this are myself, Dr. Duba, Dr. Earl, and Mr. Mezzanotte. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Awesome. Ken, I'll turn this over to you for the order that you'd like to take these in.
Yes, if we can start, so I was looking for the agenda, which,
You don't have anything on it?
if we can do the emergency sick bank, non-unit personnel first, and then GCB.
Sure.
That'd be very helpful, thank you.
So I think that we have a red line version of the emergency sick bank that you and Andrew had worked on.
Yes. Have there been any changes to this since we last met with these red lines? Yes.
Okay.
I had sent something yesterday with comments on it.
Yeah, I uploaded that into the shared file, so.
Do you want me to just go through it? And
Yeah, just if
Andrew-
you want to, high level.
Okay, so Andrew, please feel free to jump in, 'cause I know you had some on here as well. So the changes that we are suggesting in the first sentence, currently the sick bank is for anyone after their second year of consecutive unbroken service. We're recommending to change it to be read: once employed, non-unit members of the North Kingstown School Department are eligible for membership in the emergency sick leave bank.
So just to confirm, that's effective with their first day of employment, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want us to save questions, or do you want me to ask them as we?
I think we ask as we go in that way.
Yeah. I just had to clarify, I don't have any problem with the change. My question would be to Stephanie, like, as far as like, is it like, let's say they started in May, like, is it that moment, or is it the next time that you have kind of like open enrollment into sick bank? Like, you don't have to wait 2 years, but it's not like, you don't start that moment, I guess, is my clarifying question. Like, what is your intent, I guess, with this change?
So, I mean, to me, it would be when they're hired, they would be asked if they want to join.
Okay.
So it wouldn't matter whether it's September or August or December. We contribute the days.
I mean, so you get your sick bank, right? So when you're hired, that's when you get your allotment of sick days. So to me, you would be asked whether, do you want to join? And if you say yes, then you would donate those days.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
The next revision is in bullet 3. All days donated shall be from the accumulated sick leave of each member at the time of the donation. The initial donation shall be 3 days. That was a revision that was in there. No employee can donate more than 3 days to the sick leave bank. All donated days shall permanently become part of the sick leave bank.
How many sick days do they get when they start?
So everyone gets 15 sick days. So yes, the first year would give 3.
15 each
So,
fiscal year?
so each year you get a
Yep.
new group of
Yep.
sick days.
So if you start on June 1st, you still get 15?
It's prorated, so
Okay.
it depends on when you start. So you start
Yeah.
in like November, it would be how many months are left in the year.
So is there ever a case where somebody would have less than 3 days?
Yeah, if they started in June.
So-
Because they-
Yeah.
Mhm. So, based on this, depending when you start, you may not be eligible, right? So it says once employed non-unit members, but you have to be able to donate 3. So if you're employed at the very end of a school year, you may not actually be eligible because you don't have enough days.
I think we should probably add
So-
something like that in the first one, because
Mhm.
it makes it sound like you're eligible, like,
So, but then, like, if you started in May and you didn't have enough days, in July, you're gonna get new sick time.
but, and then, like, so if I started in May and you asked me, and I said I'd like to, and you say you can't because you don't have 3, and I say, okay, thank you, do you then come back to me in July and say you
Well,
don't
we would
have 3?
have to, yeah.
Well, and let's wait until we get to item 4 too, because it talks about, or the one that talks about the date, so we can,
Okay, can we go back to one I added language in there? So one, if we agree to this, would read, once employed, non-unit members of the North Kingstown School Department are eligible for membership in the emergency sick leave bank if they have 3 days for the initial donation. 3 sick days.
Or maybe when, not if.
Reviewed. When they have 3 sick days to contribute for their initial donation.
I think that's good enough for now, and then if we want to circle back, like, once we go through the document, like, our thought might change on that, but I think based on what we just talked about, that makes sense.
The next change is in 4. After the initial year of enrollment and initial donation, all eligible full-time members of the emergency sick leave bank will automatically have 1 day deducted for the bank annually unless the employee opts out no later than October 1st. The original is 3 days, but when Stephanie pulled up the number of days, and I have comments on the side, the reason we're suggesting 1 day is because the sick bank currently has 2,515 days in it, and we only have about 30 members, so we don't believe that we need to have everyone put in 3 days each year based on the number of days that are already in the bank and the number of employees that we have that may be eligible for this.
And the annual date would be, so every July 1st, we get our annual accruals, that's when the days, that was when it's deducted.
Sorry, say that again, the date.
So, you know how it says, will it be bank annually unless the employee opts out?
Yep.
So on that, when we give those new accruals, that's when they,
Yeah, sorry, the one part I didn't understand was when the new accruals hit.
July 1.
Okay. So why,
So I don't know if that October date should change because it's gonna get taken out on July 1.
yeah. So I'm convinced that the October date exists because you hire so many people after July 1. Like that, I've been thinking about the October 1 date and like why in a world you would do that when your fiscal year starts on July 1. And that was my thought, but like my brain like only came to, that's when you had a clean list of who you had actually hired in a school district. I would defer to you all on what you think makes most sense and what will cause HR the least amount of work and be cleanest for the employees. Like I don't actually care, like whatever the date is, but that when I was thinking about it, I was like, oh, if it's July 1 and then you do most of your hiring in August and September, like, you know, for the start of the school year, you're gonna have to do it again. So I totally defer to you all on whatever you think is best there.
When people are hired, right, so if you know, like, you know, someone gets hired July, August, they give it all of their information, they have their orientation on the benefits, as long as they know that there's a sick bank that they may be eligible for, and you have to donate 3 days, but you let us know by October 1st, they're aware of that, right? That's giving them the information they know how to use their days from July to October. Hopefully no one does use all 12 days between that time. But you have those, you know to save 3 days. You know you have 3 days that you're going to donate.
Well, it's just 1 day. Oh, for the original one, yeah.
The original. Yeah.
It's 1 day. So so you get your sick days on July 1. and then they would just sit there and then you would wait and then you'd pull out the sick bank ones on October 1?
Yeah, we
right?
can do it whenever, we really
Yeah.
can. I mean, we can give them their balance, and then if nobody says I'm opting out, then somebody goes in and takes out the day, puts it in the bank.
Do we know what the, no, never mind, that doesn't have to do with this, I will ask that question a different day. All right, so are we suggesting keeping
Yeah, I think that's fine.
October 1?
So when do the initial 3 days come out?
Whenever they have them.
Yeah. So they sign up, and when they have, I mean,
Is there a deadline to sign up? So there's no October 1 deadline to sign up.
well, right now it says, I think the way that it's worded, I just have it.
When's your open enrollment for other stuff?
June? I didn't mean like health and dental?
Yeah. It's in June.
May, June, I think. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
it's like the first 2 weeks of
Yeah.
June.
So I think there'd be a deadline that we would have that people would sign up by for their sick bank days and have it the same as what number 4 is with the October 1. That was the only reason why I was going back to the whole 3 days, like, you get hired and told you have a sick bank, you gotta have it done by a certain time.
I mean, so it was different before because you had to be here a year. So when you were here a year,
You had
the
not,
coach
that's why they did it, that's why they did it. But we also know that it doesn't, you know.
But
it
everybody's
causes
hired at
problems.
different
Yeah.
times, so. I mean,
Yeah, like it was like, the way they had it written was like at the beginning of your second consecutive year, so like even if you had started, like it's, they're trying to make it so that it's all consistent, that's what it seems to be, but we also know that we wanna not, with that we value our employees and that we want them to be able to participate as soon as possible, but like I understand why, like they had set that year, because it's confusing if not, because if they don't have the time, or when they start, you have to like, but I also agree with you kind of about the, like it makes sense to have it be part of their orientation.
yeah, I mean, I think when we hire them and we do the new employee orientation, we should say, we have a sick bank, you're eligible to join. If you don't have 3 days now, then when you get your new accruals in July, you need to let us know by, so if you get your accruals in July, by October, whether you want to do this or not. So if they don't have enough the first year, you say, in July, you'll get your new accruals, and then if you want to donate, you have to, or they sign the paper when they get hired, and so then when July 1 comes the following and they have enough, then we deduct them.
Do they sign the form annually?
They're supposed,
I signed it once,
yeah, they're supposed to sign it once and they can opt out
Yep.
annually,
Yep.
yeah.
but then it's an opt-out, yeah.
Oh, you have to give them that form so they know that they can opt out. I would put a deadline when you first get hired, that you have, next amount of time to think about it, so it's not like at orientation, you gotta like. fill it.
Right, yeah.
I would say by a certain time.
Because
For
you have 30 days
consistency, I
to
would-
sign up for help.
That was gonna be my question, how long do you have for that?
Yeah,
Same thing, yeah.
So then with on line 1, we should also put something there that it's within 30 days of employment that you sign up for.
Yeah, we can
Is it
have
back?
the paper in the packet we give them, and they have 30 days to give it back.
You said they get 15 days? Right?
What was that?
They get 15 days?
Of sick time?
Yeah.
Yes. Is it 105 hours?
It's 1.25.
What happens if you don't do it the first year and you decide you wanna do it the 4th year?
No,
You're out of luck, you have to commit to it your first, like upon your first.
that's how it was.
Okay.
I mean, we can change that, but, it doesn't seem fair then they're not donating days all those
Is that
years.
this, Rachel, or
And
something
I think
else?
that's the same,
No, it was me going.
Yeah, it was to this, right?
Yeah, that, yeah.
yeah.
My
so-
personal recommendation would be having an open enrollment thing every year. So if an employee had not opted in but then wanted to, so say like you didn't want to give your time because you were worried, maybe you had a like situation where you thought you were going to need to use your time, maybe that situation, you know, resolves itself and you're like, oh, now I can contribute. Like I don't think you'd want to prevent people from contributing, but I do think if you set like open enrollment dates, like that way it takes away this new employee issue because it's just like, oh, our next open enrollment date is on this date, you can contribute starting then, and then it just cycles through. That would be my recommendation, but
What if you know you're gonna have like a knee surgery? Oh, I think I'll bid in for it now, this year, because I'm having surgery in spring. We hope people are not like
No,
that,
valid,
but I
valid.
think that's why they probably didn't do it in the past. That's why I went,
yeah.
I believe in open enrollment and allowing people to, every year personally, but I think that's probably why they might not.
I think that's why they did it too.
Because there's sometimes a rotten person in lunch.
There's one behind every rule.
Yeah, I always try to write, and I totally agree with you, I try to write my policies the other way. Like, I try
Yeah.
to write it to the benefit of the majority of the employees and not the one person that might be icky, right? Like, you know, like, and it's hard to do that because you
Because
always
the
want to like
majority
write to
of
the
people do the right
exception.
thing.
Yeah, the majority of the people, like, I just want to give an hour of my sick day, and if one of my colleagues got sick, I would most certainly want them to benefit from being able to be able to use that time and not have it create like financial ruin for their family. You know, like I think most people end there, so I think it's just what do we think's best for the district, and then putting in protection so that if it, you know, if something like happened, like we would be able to work through it. Like, do they have a maximum that they're allowed to? Because you still have to approve it, right?
Right, well, after you
Like the administration
become part
still
of the sick
has,
bank,
yeah,
but then when you need it, it needs to get approved. So
yeah,
it's not like, oh, you signed up, you have it, and now you
Yeah.
get those days, you then have to submit.
yeah.
medical
request
So
once
there's
you're
your,
in.
there's your protection.
Yeah, that's your protection against.
So you could
what
even
were
say, like, if you just joined this year, maybe it's a limited amount of days you get to use or something like that, but that could be up to the committee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Okay,
majority
so
of
it
people.
does go into further of like how many days you get, how many times you can make that request. So if we were going to do an open enrollment period, when would that be? Because May, June for healthcare, kind of late for something like this, right?
Unless
Well,
you're
that's
catching it
it's
on
part of
the-
the next year.
For
So
the
you
next
do
year,
it.
yeah.
So at the end of this, say at the end of the school year, you have to say whether you want to be in it again for the next school year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you want to say June? May?
I think it should coincide.
So
with the
you
other
say in
open
May?
enrollments. I mean, I don't have the exact date,
Okay.
but it's,
So I'll put a comment here to check the date.
Or do you just want to put during like open
During the
enrollment period
district's
for all
open
benefits?
enrollment,
Yeah,
yeah.
that way you're not.
Yeah,
like-
we don't have to pigeonhole if it
Yeah.
changes.
because open enrollment,
that's a
I mean,
great idea.
depending on,
Yeah.
That's a really good idea.
Yep. And then that would be, it would allow people to not have to wait a whole year. Like I'm trying to think the most that somebody would have to wait to join would be, are we still saying they could join?
well, I think we're saying that they can join when they're employed, but that every open enrollment, they have the option to
Yeah.
withdraw.
Or contribute.
Or contribute. So like if somebody didn't contribute for a couple of years and they decided, I want to now, that's what we're saying.
So Ken, I think the sentence you're writing is actually for bullet 4. Like if you think of like bullet 1 as like the new employees, and then when it's talking about like opting. Like I would change that last sentence about, like, it would say something about, like, after the initial year of enrollment, an initial donation, all eligible full-time members of the emergency sick bank will automatically have 1 day deducted from the bank annually, unless, and then,
Just do a new sentence.
yeah, and then, like, what you were writing about, like,
I was just saying that I was thinking health insurance was October 1, I think, for the open enrollment, no?
No, that's, that was this, October 1 is the second HSA contribution,
Okay,
so,
never mind.
Is, not, we don't wanna write any employees, we wanna write any non-unit personnel, right? Cause this is only non-unit personnel. Correct?
Yes.
Mhm.
You don't think that sentence belongs after the, within 30 days of employment, the employee must sign up for the sick bank?
I don't know, cause this is the next, because like item 3 is talking about like how you opt out or opt in, you know, like, so like, just like, okay, so I'm a new employee, I get hired on June 1st, right? Like, so then I get hired on June 1st and you give me 1.75 sick days for the month of June. So like, then I sit down with the HR and they say, okay, here's like all your things, you have 30 days to decide if you wanna join this or not. And then I say, oh, okay, I like talk to my family and I say, yes, I'd like to contribute. And then even after those 30 days, I still don't have,
you would though.
I only have 3 days at that point.
Well, if you join
Yeah.
June on July 1, you're gonna get new sick time.
Yep.
But if
Do
you
you
look
lose
at,
your sick time? Does it go away or can you accumulate?
And cumulative.
Okay.
if you look at bullets 2 and 3, that bullets 2 and 3 also would be related to what we just added about being able to sign up after an open enrollment. So it talks about membership of the emergency sick leave bank is voluntary, it talks about the number of days you have to give. So I think it actually needs,
I would just
we
maybe
go
make,
for
you
bullet
could,
2,
yeah,
right,
that's,
and do
that's
bullet
fine,
2.
yeah.
and then I think we need something else in that sentence just to clarify. So,
Yeah.
if we said,
This district had to carry,
It has to have the days to cover it,
okay.
yeah. In theory, yeah. 2,000 something.
Yeah, I heard the number. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
like that's.
It's like a pension. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yes, that's what made me
Exactly
think
right.
of it, yeah, like that concept.
after 30 days of employment, non-unit personnel will have another opportunity to become a member of the sick bank during the open enrollment period for health insurance. And that way it's specifying it's for those members who have not signed up yet, but
Do we want to say must wait to become a member of the sick bank during the open enrollment period for health insurance? Because basically, if you don't sign up for it when you're hired, you've got to wait till open enrollment, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the same for like health insurance. So if you don't take it when you're
Yeah.
hired, then you
Yeah.
have to wait.
And this goes
maybe
into
they should just say that
effect.
instead of after 30 days. If
Not selected upon hire or whatever.
Let's see. I didn't see that one.
how's that? If a non-unit personnel does not become a member at time of hire, another opportunity will be made available during the open enrollment period for health insurance.
Just to be clear, everything that we're doing goes into effect next year, because we are already past, like, what we're doing right now. And so, like, in theory, like, we're under this, what's written currently for this year. And then this is really honestly for next year.
Right.
Yeah. So this isn't the most time-sensitive thing, right?
So what do we do with people who haven't been asked in the last couple of years?
You just have to follow the policy as written.
So,
And if you need this, if you need the school committee to change that October 1 date,
but I
like
thought
for
we,
this
I
year.
thought we had to
could-
make I thought we were saying we
Yeah.
had to make changes though for the date.
Yeah, you could make a
That's what
one-time
we wanted to
exception to the
say.
school committee if you haven't asked them yet for that number 5. Like, we could make a change to just that date for just this year if you need to collect, like, days from people this year. Like, if you want to give them an opportunity to opt out. But, like, we're already beyond this calendar-wise from a policy perspective.
So how many days would we be asking everybody for?
Whatever was written in the
I think it
original
was
policy.
3, wasn't it?
So what do we do about all the things people signed that doesn't coincide with the policy?
I think the policy would probably trump the document, although I acknowledge this complete. They're not the same, they're not lined up at all. So I think the policy would govern. Do we know, but not everybody had days taken out regardless when they filled the form out, correct?
What do you mean?
Didn't we say that, like last year, that no days were taken out, or some people didn't have any days taken out?
That I can see, yeah.
The other option could be is there any other legal options?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm
Either-
trying to think of like the practical impact right now. So
Yeah.
if I'm an employee and I had days taken out originally, and then for whatever reason over the last couple of years, doesn't seem like anyone had the days taken out, but there are days in the bank,
Right.
right? So if we just say, okay, that's,
It is what it is.
that is what it is.
Yeah,
We've
no,
got
not go
we've got
back.
days in
Yeah.
the bank, we look at the policy as written, they would donate, this year, they would donate for 3 days, and then we would waive the October date to a certain point, and then
Yeah.
next year, this would go into effect. So if you wanted to get out of the sick bank, you could, if you wanted to. I mean, I suppose you could argue, well, we were doing 3, now people only have to do 1, but that's just the nature of the change.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think there's any way we can go back and remedy, you know, what happened during COVID and everything else. I think it's just, if you were having days donated in good faith, you opted in, we've got evidence that you opted in. If they weren't pulled out for some reason, it's not like we're, to use the pension, underfunded at this point.
Yeah,
in
no,
time.
or-
We've got days.
No, I got a better idea. Sorry, Andrew. What if if Ken comes to the school committee and says, we would like you to change the opt-out date just for this year to December 1, and we'd like to change the contribution just to 1 day this year because of the amount that we have in the bank. Anybody that's in gets 1 day out, they get until December 1, decide if they're opt-in, opt-out, and then we reset and we start again next year with the current new
You
policy.
can do that as well.
Right.
You can change, I mean,
Like,
you're there.
that way
making-
it's the
you're making
minimum
a change,
amount.
So,
I think
It's
we
the
can
one
invite
because we'll
everybody.
honor some people,
Because-
because some people say 1, the policy said 3, so we could make 2 quick exceptions. If the school committee supported that, then we could just at least move forward for this year, and then we can update.
Because there's a
the
couple of
document
people
as
who
such.
opted out. Like,
Yeah.
I have record of people who opted out
That's fine, though.
originally, so I
Yeah.
think they still opted
The
out. but
opt-outs
we
are
get-
still out.
they're
right?
still out.
yeah, the opt-outs would still be
Okay.
out, but when this policy goes back into effect, you
Then-
now have this open enrollment, so you
Okay.
would have the
All
chance
right.
to jump
Yeah.
back in.
So if
the-
we're doing that, then why wouldn't we still say that this policy goes into play this year? Moving forward after it's approved? Because nothing else, everything else would go along with what you just said.
It just, if you change that, it just is,
The only
well,
other,
we probably wouldn't let people,
the opt-in piece, you wouldn't allow
well,
someone.
because your open enrollment would be until in the spring, so it would go into effect when the open enrollment goes into
Right,
effect.
that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
so both would happen.
Yeah.
We would.
Yeah,
put this
no, it will
forward for
go,
approval,
Yeah,
along with the recommendation of, for this year, to change the deadline to opt out to December 1 and only donate 1 day for this year. Policy still, finishes policy, still
Yeah.
gets approved. I mean, it gets past this
Yeah.
point, goes to school committee for approval, and then the policy's in place moving forward. So we made the exception for what we need right now in the moment.
yeah, that's
And
fine,
we have,
yeah.
and we have the policy updated and ready to go for
Next year.
the remainder
Yeah.
of the year.
When I started my sentence, I wasn't changing what was in this. Like, when I started saying, like, we could do X, like, I was just changing the date, but then with the part about, that Stephanie mentioned about the people signing the thing that said only 1 day, I felt badly about that, so I changed my thought process midway.
Okay.
But yeah, we can move at the same time, but I do think we need to, like, this will be until, it will take a couple meetings between this and then the school committee meeting. So it's just making it, I just want to make sure that, like, people,
I just want to make sure I understand too.
Yeah.
So like, if we hired somebody last year or the year before and they didn't get the opportunity, are they getting the opportunity to do it now?
So have we not been asking? I thought we just weren't withdrawing like the second batch. We weren't even saying, hi, would you like to join?
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't think
I
we
don't
were.
know that.
I
That's
wasn't
what-
asked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's
see,
that?
Well,
that's,
you haven't been here a year, so that's what it
true.
was supposed to
and
be.
that's why I think if you switch it the way we originally talked about, it might be cleaner. Because you do have the group of people, if you followed under the strict old policy, you would have had to wait a year. So it wouldn't have even come up. I'm just trying, as I speak, I'm thinking, which is never a good idea. So if you were to change the October date and change it to 1 day, then folks who were hired at the beginning of this year under the old policy, well, you could still do it Dr. Duke's way, because they would just be able to go in, they wouldn't be eligible now, but
Well,
they
they'd
would
be
be
eligible
eligible to
in
go
May.
into the open enrollment
Right,
period.
that's what I'm saying. It
So
would
yeah,
be
no,
in
that
May.
might
but
not,
they
Anyone
should
that-
have,
it
but
might
they
not make a
should have
difference.
been, they should have been eligible in October, though.
I mean, in theory,
The
in
people who've
theory.
been here.
According to the policy, not in theory.
Well, no, not if they were hired just
Yeah.
this year, because they hadn't been, they wouldn't
Yeah,
have been.
no,
here
the
yet.
people, I don't think they did it for the people that were hired in
I-
21.
Yeah, that's, yep.
So
So-
it needs to go out to those people.
Yeah,
So those people need to know that so anyone that is eligible under the current policy we have need to get a notification about the sick bank and their eligibility. Anyone that is in the sick bank needs to know that by December 1, you have the option to
opt out.
opt out of it for the next year. And then this policy, the changes that we're making for this policy, once approved, would go into effect.
So you basically have to say, if you were hired during this time period and were not advised of your rights, so to speak, under this policy, you now have the opportunity to sort of not grandfather in, but to take advantage of
Go
it now,
back.
and you can clean that up that way.
In May, if you wanted to,
During the open enrollment.
during open enrollment, right, during the open enrollment.
You,
I think you guys are
No.
saying they should
No.
have the right to do it now.
now, yes.
Anybody that's
So
worked here
it-
for more than a
right,
year
it
should
would
be able
almost-
to do it
you'd
now.
have to
Yes,
see what
that's what
that-
he said.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I just heard you guys say May.
Yeah.
Like, so
No,
we.
no, no, so would this, when this goes into place, right, when this policy gets approved, what we're editing
Yeah.
right now, the edits that we're suggesting, if that gets approved, does the opt-in for any employee that was hired during this fiscal year get to opt in May, or are we saying you
No,
need
you-
to wait till next year?
I
Because
think,
you were
I
hired
think what we're
under the
saying
old
is,
policy.
this year, you wouldn't. But if you came last year and you had already fulfilled, I think I'm getting this right, you had already fulfilled that 1 year grace period
Mhm.
under the old policy, those folks should be allowed to come in now. So you'd have to kind of do that
It's
calculation.
those stupid policies that
Right.
you see that say this and then this, and then, like, we're gonna have to do that.
You're gonna have to capture that. If you were hired
So-
during the time frame from here to here, which would be
Yeah.
about a year ago, right, and you were not advised of your ability to join this sick pool,
This is what the
yeah,
situation is.
you can join it now, fill out this form.
Anybody
and
that's
you can
hired from
jump
this
right
date
in.
to this date
Exactly.
has to join at this.
But to
So-
your point, hired this year, would then kick in, if you amended everything now, as
I
Dr.
feel like
Joe
we're
said, that would kick in in May.
complicating
I was
We are,
gonna
but
say,
we're
I
not,
think
because
we
we're
can do two
out of-
things though. Like,
yeah.
we can put the policy aside for right now,
Yeah.
and we can say, what do we have to do to rectify the situation? And that would be notify the employees who were here for 1 year that they have the option to opt in, and that they have the option to opt in by, we're gonna say, December 1st. And Ken's gonna come to the school committee, he's gonna say, I want an exception to extend the opt-in or the opt-out, whatever.
There's two different things.
Mm.
The people that had worked here for over a year that never got the option
Yep,
to
So like the
join.
21-22 and the
Yeah.
22-23 school years.
Yep.
Yep.
So,
But that doesn't,
Depends on-
that doesn't need to go into the policy though.
No,
No.
that
That's just-
No,
just
that would
needs
just
to
be like,
happen.
that would just be
Right,
like a
right.
resolution of the school committee or
Yeah.
something like that to fix the problem.
there's the fix the problem, and then there's the what do we want the language to be from now on. But to your point, Ken, anybody that was hired, like, under the old policy, like, we just have to,
We'd stay with that old
Yeah.
policy. So, for example, the people in this room, right, we're all new.
Mhm.
So this policy, right, what
Mhm.
we're saying, we're making revisions to this. When it gets approved, it doesn't apply to us because we were hired under the old policy. It doesn't apply to us until,
all right, in the interest of time,
Until May,
until,
the open enrollment period,
right,
right?
maybe in
It was
May.
amended,
Yeah.
okay.
But, so for now, I think what we can say is, we don't need to fix the policy today, because we're running up against a time crunch here. What we need is an action, which is reaching out to the employees, correct? And a request from you to extend, no request from
they
you?
can't reach out to the employees until they come to the school committee to ask for that deadline extension, because it's past October 1.
But to enroll, they can, correct?
There's no,
I can't get.
but like, you can't enroll in something that you can't up,
Right,
like,
so on November 16th, I would come to school committee and ask
Once
for
you do that, that would be the-
us to extend it till December 1st.
Yep.
We'll have everything ready to go, and we
Go ahead and go back to the
Get it out.
they need
for
to, you need
people
to,
to,
That's.
yeah,
that's
you need to waive the
time, you know.
beginning of their second consecutive year part, because that's the part that, like, those are the two parts that we need to, like, the school committee needs to say, yes, it's okay to go back to people that you all missed and fix this, basically, right?
right,
And so we can do that November 16th,
because, well,
that first sentence. Non-unit members beginning their second year effective unbroken service.
so there's no
are
timeline,
eligible.
all it says is the beginning of their second year. So do we have to, because there's no, all we're saying is we missed, now we need to go back and make sure that we get them into the system. We would not, that we offer this to them. So do we? Andrew, do we need to have the school committee approve that we are going to go back for the past 2 years and make sure that anyone
Oh,
that was
no.
hired during that
I-
time, that they,
Yeah, I think you do, because in fact, as sort of a side conversation Stephanie and I were just having, let's say you were hired 21-22, and you didn't get the notice. And now we're saying, our mistake, you should have been able to participate. Well, how do you donate to get into that participation? In other words, we were just talking, do you go back and look at the policy? Had I been offered this in 21-22, I would have donated 3 days a year. So are we saying, well, if you want to do that now, you donate 6?
Yeah, I would
I
just
don't-
I would just write like a memo of whatever, like almost like a
Just
memo of
donate three.
understanding or memo
Yeah.
of agreement between the administration and the school committee, this is what we're doing.
That's,
and
I
then
think it
the
would be
school
cleaner if we
committee
just did
approves
it that way. That way
Yeah.
everybody's on the
Yeah.
same notice. You could even attach that with, here's
Yeah,
what the
just a
school
really
committee
clean
and admin have
memo from
decided.
you,
Here's what you
saying
do.
this is what we're doing.
Maybe
Because
just the initial
it's
contribution.
impossible to,
Yep. I think you have to have a very clear directive as to
Yeah.
what happened and here's how we're fixing
Yep.
it. Because otherwise, I like to donate 6 to make up for this time, well,
Yeah,
then we
you can't,
donated
yeah.
3. I think we just make it nice and clean and just do a.
this is what the options
Yep,
are, and then the
exactly.
school committee approve it.
Yep.
Alright,
Yep.
so that's how we'll do that, and then,
do we want to, I mean, we're halfway through with this policy, I feel like,
yeah.
I know it's not, like, we can,
Check it off.
right, I just want to get it
Yeah.
done. That way we can say that we have a
think that-
policy, we can then look at the other changes that are here, we're almost done with what is on here, and some of it's
Yeah.
just what we're calling certain things. Because if we looked at it, number 7 is just changing personnel to human resources,
Mhm.
and then we're moving number 11 to the end. To become 14. And on 13, instead of superintendent, it says it would go to the school committee. Because I'm a member of the group, so it shouldn't be coming to me for the appeal,
Yeah, we talked about that last time.
right? Or am I not? I don't know.
Well, so it had, the original way it was written was 2 members of the North Kingstown Administrative Association, which we have not found record of. Like, I haven't ever seen a document that outlined who that was. I'm assuming that if the appeal goes to the superintendent wasn't part of that group, in that,
That's what I
whatever
just
that
said,
is, yeah.
because, mine,
But then, I mean,
not
ultimately,
city.
Let's
So
see.
it would go.
If the appeal goes to you, that would kind of, wouldn't it passively be saying that you're not part of that original?
Right,
Yes.
but if you think about it, I don't think I.
You probably shouldn't be.
I don't think I am.
Shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So it could just go to
Well-
superintendent.
it's too, I agree, but, well, let's think it through on what would make most sense, because you also have to think about, like, these are your peers in your office, right? And so, like, what, like, you know, like, the school committee, if you said no, ultimately, they could appeal to us, like, regardless, right? And so, is it better for you to be part of the conversation of, like, because you know the employees and you know the situation about approving or not approving it, like, is that the superintendent's role, or do you want to be, add another layer to it? Because ultimately,
I think you should.
like, if you disagree with the thing, it'll probably come to us regardless, and so I don't think having you part of the initial conversation about what makes sense for the district and if the employee gets it or not.
If we're gonna be
It's
consistent, I
inappropriate.
feel like what we typically do when it comes to like decisions that have an appeal process is that the superintendent would be the like appeal after.
Yeah, so you would have it another layer. in
That's
between.
what, that's what we do like for other situations,
Yeah, makes sense.
you know?
Being consistent is good. So do you want to add some language in though, that the superintendent chooses the 2 members of the North Kingstown administration?
I'm also thinking, are we suggesting that the appeal from the superintendent would be to the school committee? 'Cause I think as this was written, it wouldn't. It would have been, which is typical of a sick bank, it would have just ended with the that would have been the final level of
Yeah.
appeal.
So what happens if there's nothing, that's it?
Nope. And then the numbers have changed here a little bit, but this would be typical of a sick bank, is that when the sick bank committee speaks, it would go to the superintendent for review, and then that's it. It's not something that would be appealable up to the school committee. As it was written. You can
If
do it either
that's the
way, it's
case-
really up to you. It's-
So why don't we just put it back to that? Let's just put it back, where it goes to the superintendent for the appeal.
And maybe you put to the appeal to the superintendent or designee in the case, I mean, I'm just trying to think of,
It's a school committee policy though.
you can, if you want the school committee to be able to hear it, you could certainly write it in, but as written, it would have
Yeah.
that, it would have ended with the superintendent. Or if the superintendent was requesting it, I'm sure you would have just made the committee up differently.
It would seem a little strange if the committee couldn't hear it.
Again, they can if they want to. I think generally the way this is that you've got this subcommittee or the sick bank committee has access to all of the medicals, all the things. They kind of internally govern the days themselves. It's like the union sick bank committee.
Mhm.
My guess is if you've got a sick bank in your CBA, I don't know off the top of my head, I bet you a decision from that is not appealable to the school committee. I bet you that stops right at the sick bank.
Right, but that's
Like
also
the
not written
teachers,
into.
yeah, I don't think it can, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's also, that's through their own internal
Yeah.
processes, right?
Yep.
Like
I
they
mean, you
get
could
to
do it
vote,
either-
like they get to
Yeah.
vote on their contract, so
Yeah.
like they get to make the decision of
Yeah.
how that's run versus this is a little
You're
different.
saying the
It's
way
like
this
you all
was
don't
written,
have-
I don't think there was an appeal to the school committee, but you can certainly put one in, or not have one. I don't think it makes a difference either way. I think it really, you're right.
Let's go back to the original, where it was, right? So then it goes, the appeal goes to the superintendent.
Yeah, and then if you look at what's 14, which I bet was 13 at some point in time, all decisions of that sick bank committee shall be final and binding, subject only to paragraph 12, which would have been, I'm guessing, again, we've renumbered, but I'm guessing that would have been the appeal to the superintendent. So if I'm correct in the numeration, then that would have been it. It would have been like, you can appeal to the superintendent, but if you don't get past the superintendent, that's the final decision. final and binding, subject only to the superintendent's review.
So it will be 12 once 11 comes out. If we just, because 11's coming down, because I record of the proceedings.
Yeah, I think 14 would be, if the way it's written now, 14 is going to be referring to,
Let's do that. Okay. Now it should be accurate. Just go
correct,
ahead.
yep.
So is this the only thing that's not appealable to the school committee then?
I don't know.
I mean, if, IDEA 504 type stuff generally isn't.
But that goes to RIDE, like there is a higher authority
Yeah.
above the
Yep.
superintendent.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, and again, please understand, you can make this
Yeah.
reviewable by the school.
That's what
committee.
I'm just
That's-
asking, like, is this where is this the only thing in the district that we want to be ending at the
Us-
superintendent level?
In Jamestown, so my previous district, if we didn't approve a sick bank at the level, and that was myself, another administrator and union member, it then went to school committee for review
Yeah,
at that point.
I just think you get like in a weird place, and not that I want to overreach with the school committee's authority by any means. I do not want to be involved at a level, but when you're talking about like two people, right? Like if you're talking about like an employee and a superintendent, if they don't get along, like you don't want, like there's not like a body, and at least at the school committee level, there's 5 people to hear it, and like they're not as day-to-day involved like in the inner workings. So like, not that I think a superintendent would do like the right thing and the good decision, but like it's really close. Like it's the people you're in the same office with. Whereas at least if it gets good to the school committee, it's like,
It's
okay,
another level of review.
yeah, like just a different level of review versus your your colleagues like at that level. But I also get that like the union. I get that it probably was like this because the union. It's modeling the
Yeah,
union
exactly.
language.
Yep.
But it's not the same because you're not collective bargaining. You're not like it's not the same vibe. And I just want to like make sure we're setting it up to be as fair and just, and also like to help the superintendent too. Like if it's in a really sticky situation, like it at least kind of like the school committee did it. Like like it kind of can
Can I ask
alleviate
this-
that a little.
Do we have any record of appeals going? Like a lot of appeals, like with this going to the superintendent's level or anything?
I don't think we have any record of it even
I don't have
being
any records
used,
of
right?
Well, according to the
Actually,
policy,
requesting
it would
these.
be in Ken's office somewhere. We're not sure.
No, I'm just curious,
Yeah.
like, if there's any like track record of this
Yeah.
being a thing that's like typically.
Like it's a hot appeal.
Yeah, like is
Yeah,
this
I
an
don't think
appeal
it
that's
is,
like
yeah.
happening?
I've seen
like-
it happen at my work before, like not
Okay.
obviously here. I've seen appeals happen for sick bank
Did you have
before.
like things like this happen?
Yeah.
in
You
your-
said you had some.
I had one that
Yeah.
went to school committee.
Okay,
Yeah,
alright, so it does happen.
yeah. I think we should be. My recommendation would be to be consistent. So it could still go to the superintendent. Like we could do the same process. You'd have 2 administrators hear it and 1 member of the superintendent's central office staff. If they say no, you can't use it, then they could appeal to the superintendent. If the superintendent like confirms it and they're still like unsatisfied with that, they could go to the school committee and be heard. And then if we say no, that's it. Like you could add that in or you could not. But I think it makes sense to be consistent.
Yeah, I mean, by state law, any decision of the school committee would be appealable to RIDE. So I point that out not to further complicate things, but I mean, that's right in the statute. So if I'm an employee who's disgruntled by the school committee's
RIDE never
decision,
ends.
I could, you know what I mean? I may try and take advantage of that and say, hey, the statute says.
Even
any
if you
decision-
wrote in, the statute says that,
Yeah, we couldn't write anything
Yeah.
into this that would usurp the statute,
that's why they leave it here. That's why they left it.
possibly.
Why are we editing this policy? Like, no, like, I'm serious, other than maybe the 3 days and the updating human resource,
Right. So
Well, I
let's
think-
leave it with the superintendent.
yeah.
I think the biggest thing I saw, I think that Stephanie saw, was that the notice that went out and the policy were in direct conflict.
Yeah, and then you're making people wait a year.
Yep.
But there was also the thing about the 10 years, after 10
After
years,
10
not so
years, you don't
much,
have
which
to
was
give any more days.
not written anywhere.
That's,
That was,
Yeah.
And I think at one point, if you had reached your sick bank like, I think there's 130 days that you can carry over. If
507.
they had more days, they would just put them, so I think that's why they changed that.
I see, yeah.
So like,
Yep.
you know, you can only accrue so many days, so if you had more sick days, they would people were putting them in the,
Or they were done.
Rather than just
so,
lose
because I can see like 10 in here, 10, 10, so that's when they said, I think they said you can't give more than.
In 2013, they edited it because they were like, that's, yeah, because of the concern that I have, which
This
is,
is exactly right.
like, in theory, the district's responsible for how much is in the sick bank, right? So like, if it does get approved, like, you're paying out of your budget for that person's salary plus a sub or somebody to do their work, whatever, and like, if you're at a place where it's quite a lot and the committee is making those decisions, like, the school committee has to pay, like, we have to find the money to pay that,
Sure.
basically, in the budget.
30
Yeah.
administrators who all of a sudden applied for
Yeah,
this or
like
were
you
granted
don't-
the maximum amount of
Yeah.
days.
You'd have to fund whatever's in there.
Yep.
That feels icky.
My other question on this was, we talked about some of the other policies, do we want to specify what full-time and part-time is? Because it says 10 and 10, it says full-time employees and part-time employees, where before, I think we were talking about like day employee, like the number of day employees, right? Was that, or am I imagining that? Like, what is a full-time employee, what is a part-time employee?
Say it's according to probably like job description, right?
I'm just asking.
For non-unit personnel,
So I'm just trying to think, I don't think we have.
I think we should just define it, whatever it is,
Yeah.
35 hours,
Yeah.
Everyone's looking
12-month
at it.
contracts or whatever.
Whatever it is, yeah.
Is that the correct answer? What policy was that, Jen?
It was, I think it was the GCB one, where we were talking about hours, not hours, like, we were talking about the way to define full and part-time.
Yeah. It mattered a lot in whatever we were talking about, but in this one, I don't think it's bad to define it.
No.
So that's on what line?
So it was,
Eligible full-time. You guys 35 or 40?
Yeah, we were talking about 215-day personnel
How many hours a week
and,
do it?
70, week 35.
35. I'm proud of the fact that you, we'll unpack that later.
I'm not sure.
Employees. What, Jen?
it was a policy that we were talking about, we were referring them to them in day, like as day employees, the number of days in their contracts, like 12 months or,
Oh, yeah, what did we decide on that?
I cannot find.
I thought we decided that part-time was anyone that was less than a 1.0, right?
That's what I, that was
I
what
thought
we
that was the
discussed before.
conversation.
That's
Anyone who's
not a
like,
full,
yeah, anyone who's not like.
0.8,
Yeah.
0.7 is all part-time, right?
We only have 20 minutes.
so
left.
we have all full-time is 35 hours per week. And that's that's from the GCB.
But I think we're changing that, like, we haven't finished that policy, and when we discussed that policy, we were changing it from hours to days. That's what we had discussed. But in the interest of time, because it's my understanding you need to go through the other policy, correct?
Do you want to do GCB as well?
So
Yes.
so 2 questions just to wrap this up, and then you're welcome to make a motion, Ken, to send it to the school committee. Like, if you want, like, this is close enough that you can send it, and then we can mess around with it up there as need be. But so, was the final consensus of the policy subcommittee that we wanted to have it end at the superintendent, so that it then didn't have to get into ride land and different things like that, right? Correct?
Mhm.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
So
And then,
I think I made all the edits on here.
yep, so that's all set, and
So I was
then
looking for what Jen was talking
we
about.
can always put in full-time Jen at the school
Yep.
committee level,
Yep.
because we understand the intent there. We're going with the 1 day. We're going with an open enrollment so that people can opt in, and then we're going with that. So I think it's good enough that if you all want to make a motion to bring it up to the school committee, that we can do so at this time.
I'll make a motion that we bring GCB, our emergency sick bank, to the school committee.
Okay, do a second.
Second.
Jen? Oh, sorry, that's you, Jen.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Look at that, Ken, you can push it forward.
Well, something done.
You did get something done. I'll take a win. Okay. Where do we go next?
So then GCB,
Do we have a red line of this, or?
I just have what I had submitted last time for the recommendations, which,
And this one,
that or no? Do you have, I can resend it.
No, I have it.
So I know we had talked about the suggestions I had sent forward for it to still be a policy, but to put that into a policy versus it just being a template, contract template. Rob and Rachel, I'm sharing it with you because I don't know if you had it. Do you have
Yeah,
it?
the recommendation, it's in there,
Yes.
but that's not like a red line to the policy. Those are just like
Can you bring me on that one so I don't do it?
comments, correct? I feel like, from my understanding, from my recollection of the last time we discussed this, there were still things that needed to be.
I think the reason that we put GCB on the policy subcommittee today, though, is we wanted to specifically talk about the paternity leave piece that we had added to the NEA and K one, and that maybe we wanted to have the policy subcommittee consider if we wanted to put similar language into GCB today, maybe have that, go up to the school committee and then circle back and make more edits to this, right, Ken? Like, that's the time sensitive piece.
could
Like,
do
I know
that.
we need
You
to
could do it
finish
that
this one,
way.
but I feel like this is beefy
Yeah,
for
it's
15
the
minutes.
paternity
but I know
because we have
that's-
3 members that
Yeah.
are going out. We have 1 member that's going out very soon.
Yeah, I feel like.
Yeah, so that was
So
something that we didn't
that's-
rectify when we did the NEA and K contract, and so I think that's the priority for today, is to look and say, do we want the exact language, do we want different language, do we want no language? I would recommend we move that piece of it up with the old policy, like say, we wanna add to the old GCB this, knowing that we still need to circle back and finish the other edits, but I know that that's a time sensitive part, and so, like, that would be my recommendation for like the conversation at least today.
So it looks like when Ken had provided this, he had a recommendation on here for parental leave that we follow the NEA and K contract on page 33 of the contract. That was the recommendation that came forward to this committee.
Yep. And so my recommendation is that we talk about that, and if we want to either have it say it like that for now, we can just have it say that and make a motion and send it up to the school committee like that for now, or we could like actually put in language, like I'm not, but we could maybe even do it in 2 tiers, because I'm not a big fan of saying just refer to whatever, because the union negotiates, like they could change things, and then that changes things for the employees that are under this policy. I would either mirror the language, or put like different languages, like, but for the interest of time.
I was
it's
just
easier,
using
we
that
could
as
do
a
that.
reference.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was thinking we
that
would
was-
actually put the language in
Yeah,
there
okay,
and just
that's
say,
what-
like,
yeah,
go
that would
find
be
this
my
language here
recommendation.
on this page, right? That's
Yeah.
what you meant, right, Ken?
Yes.
Yeah.
So is everybody okay with that language being applied to,
I think we need to look at it, Jen, because I think there's very, for lack of a better word, like teacher-specific language in that wouldn't apply here. So I think the intent, I'm super supportive of the intent, but I do think we should actually look at the language, because it might not make sense just to carbon copy it.
do we have a copy of that?
I can pull it up.
If you just Google NEA, NK contract,
It's
it's on the
the-
website.
It's in there.
It's on page 32, I think.
33.
Ah, so close.
What page, 33?
33. It's at the bottom of 33. So it does say in here that the notification shall be provided as far in advance as possible, but at least 4 weeks before the leave is to begin.
Yeah, so like that might be fine for a teacher, but maybe like we want to put in slightly different language for a high-level administrator. Like 4 weeks might be really difficult to find a new, a temporary assistant superintendent or a temporary, like that's where like I think we should honor what our intent was with the teacher contract, but maybe we want to propose a slightly different language to make it workable for the district. And then I already talked to Andrew about this contract was supposed to be inclusive with language, like there weren't supposed to be his, hers, so.
That's actually done, my assistant did that, I got it over to Amanda, she's looking at it, sorry about that.
No worries, but so that is getting, like if we'll obviously do this and the one that we're working on right now, but also that. Are there any other things that we think we might want to adjust for this part?
Section 3.
Mm-hmm. All of it or something specific or?
Well, as a, I mean,
Yeah, just talk it through.
I don't know, do you want to do that? I mean, I think, I don't know how you could keep an administrative job. It's not like you can get a sub for it, so I don't
You'd be
know.
surprised.
Maybe.
I mean, we had a lot of subs last year for administrative jobs, I'm just saying.
We set the tone.
Not ideal, but. What do you think, Ken? What would you think is reasonable for that part?
I'm okay with A.
Is that the part that you?
No, you're talking about-
I'm
well,
assuming
just
that
trying to-
language
that
was there
just
for the
means through
continuity
the
of
year,
instruction for
right?
kids. But you're saying that that's maybe not
Because the
necessarily
commencement
the
after the end
same
of the school year
for
shall be able to
administrative
have the
position.
remainder of that school year
That you
off.
take
So
the
we're talking about the
rest.
remainder of the
Yeah,
year,
and
where
then
if
the
somebody
year.
goes out, they're able to take that entire
When you-
year.
when you-
But at any point, they can put a request in for a leave.
Yeah.
I suspect that's for the continuity of instruction for kids. So if you're going to be, I think that's what she's saying, is that may not be the,
I would
may
say-
not be
I
that
would
same
say letter-
continuity issue with the
letter-
administrator. The assistant
It's letter
superintendent
B,
comes back in
where
March, it's fine.
now they're out for the following year as well, and that's where it might be hard to get somebody for that long period of time. Especially when most times it's a retiree, no one's gonna leave a job for a one-year position to step into an administrator. Well, I shouldn't say no one, it'll be challenged, right? It'll be challenging to find someone for a one-year position.
And RIDE has that, they go back and forth about how many days a retiree
Right.
can work.
So A, we could operate on, but B, will make it a challenge for us to operate with.
It's a change for this year, I think, isn't it? Entire job.
Yeah, we got it.
It's just
yeah.
for June right
I know
now.
what you're saying.
So are you recommending that B be stricken or
I-
that it be modified?
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking, I would take B out unless we completely lose on it afterwards. I would take. Let's take the next year off unless we should replace June 1. So if your leave is on or after March 15th and you notify the superintendent that you intend to take the next school year off, must take the next year off unless the person notifies the
I think
superintendent
it's when
of their intention
budgeting
to
and
return.
hiring, that's.
I was gonna say, that's just, it's, the wording's confusing.
Right. So if they
But
told
it
you.
is saying, if you're gonna
This
take the
to
year
me
off,
sounds like-
you need to let them then know that if you're returning or not returning by June 1st.
Yeah, that's very
Because
teacher
if we hired
specific.
somebody
Yeah.
in July for that position, then what do? We've
Right.
hired somebody. So I
Mhm.
think they have to make up their mind,
Yep.
right? But I think that's for teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if we allow if we allow an administrator to take the year out, it's just going through that year. Do we want to put something in that they need to let us know by a certain date that they're returning? Because they could put in a request for another year of unpaid leave. I mean, we would have the decision of accepting it or denying it.
So if
Do
I
we
leave
need
on
another
March
clause for
15th,
that?
you want to know from me by June 1st
Yeah,
whether
you
I
could just do
intend on
section
being
one.
back
I
in
think you
September.
delete that whole section
I think
three
you
for
delete the whole
administrators,
section.
to be honest with
I would
you.
get,
I would
it's,
just do 1, 2.
it's
Right?
confusing, but that's pretty much what it's saying.
Yeah.
But does
I
that
would just
even
do
add
1
up
and
to
2,
the
to be
number of
honest,
days
with
that
the
they're allowed
contract.
to take?
I did too.
Ken, I would probably just
So
do section 1 and 2,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It gets them that, and then we're gonna, knowing that, we're going to
And then-
continue to edit this policy. We can get some feedback from your administrative team on if they think that that is good, but for kind of the purpose of trying to rectify for this fiscal year, like this part, I would just make a recommendation that we take language, section 1 and section 2 from the contract and
What about section 5?
Into the medical leave.
For the, yeah. I feel like that ties into.
yeah, you could.
You just wanna fix that Article 12. but-
Yeah, we could take that out.
That section makes sense, just keep
I think we write something in that's for the administrator. I mean, do we just use that first sentence along with the last sentence? So medical leave may be taken for absence due to complications of pregnancy, childbirth,
And
and
it will run
miscarriage and after
concurrent,
delivery of child. This medical leave will run concurrently with FMLA leave and RI FMLA leave if the
Yeah.
employee is eligible for such leave.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I make a motion.
Do that. So.
I would just make
can
a
I
motion
can I make
to-
a motion for this? So I'll make a motion that we will use the language that is in section. hold on, now.
1, 2, and 5.
So under parental leave, we'll use the language in section 1, 2, and the first and last sentence of section 5.
Okay.
Let's see if I can just copy this over to that document.
So that's your motion?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody want to second that?
it. Second.
Okay.
In the documents we have.
All in favor?
Um,
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make this insertion into the current policy with no other changes to the current policy. We'll move it forward with the understanding that we need to revisit this policy on the other points
at the next policy.
at the next, the future policy subcommittee meeting.
Yep.
Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Ken?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, and I'll just make in the discussion, like for the discussion on the, before we vote, just changing the pronouns to be
Inclusive.
inclusive.
Yeah.
And then we'll forward that word. All right. You want to call it?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so we'll leave everything else two at a time. Next meeting in 2 weeks, which is the 13th.
Which one was that?
And we'll just
Hold on,
keep the same
Stephanie has a
agenda.
question.
What's that?
No,
Hold on.
it didn't have to do with maternity.
Yep. Is there something time sensitive with GCB that you would also like the school committee to consider is my question.
The only thing is just, and I didn't talk to Kenny about this, is just the religious holidays.
That's always a fun sentence, I'm sure.
No, just because I
Well, we
know.
Yeah.
have talked about it and people keep asking.
Yeah.
So
Is there, are we,
what we need to know is, do they have the right to be given a day like others in our department, in the department do? So if there's a day that's coming up that's a religious holiday, it falls on a work day, NEA members, ESP members are given that day as a religious observance. There's nothing in the language for GCB for non-unit personnel that if they need to take that day, that they're given that day. And that's been asked of us by,
Yeah, it's a valid question.
Yeah, it's a valid.
so. And so do we,
If
we would
you,
need to add language in there, that they would be provided religious observance days.
Is this likely to come up in the next 60 days?
It-
Oh, I think some of the days
Could.
already came up in
Without looking
September.
at, yeah, I mean, some came up, there'll be some in the future, there could be some in the next 60 days, I'm just thinking about looking at a calendar, there could be.
So if we look at the contract, it says it's page 34 in the contract.
you're just seeing if the NEA language makes sense that we can.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
It's not on page 34 though. You can't search this document and it is so frustrating.
Absences and leaves, it's gonna be around here, right?
Okay, you both look and then remember the dates.
It's not in leave, is it somewhere else?
It's on page 34, letter G
Yeah, I just
of
found it.
E. Let me go to the
It says
top of
3
it.
days leave with full
Under
pay
personal
may be
leave.
granted for religious holidays upon approval of the superintendent or designee, who shall strive to do so in an equitable manner. It says 3 days leave, I mean, maybe we say up to 3 days, just so if there's 3 religious holidays throughout the year.
We don't, I feel like we have to be thoughtful about what we write here, so I don't think we have,
Yeah, I don't
1
feel
minute
this
worth of
is enough
work.
time to
Yeah.
have a reasonable conversation, but I definitely think
Yeah.
we need to address it, but I, like Erin said, I don't.
and if anything comes up in the meantime, I would imagine the superintendent could work with, like, we could work through, like, figuring that out.
Yeah, I mean, I think we consider I understand we don't want to make a decision right now in a second, but I would consider the language that's in the other contracts.
If you want, you can make a motion to set it up. Then it at least hits the school committee meeting on the 16th. And we can always wordsmith it or edit it there.
I'll make a motion that we consider the language from the NEA contract that 3 days leave with full pay may be granted for religious holidays upon approval of the superintendent designee, who shall strive to do so in an equitable manner, to be reviewed by the school committee so it can be added to the GCB policy.
Can I get a second on that?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Well, that way it'll at least go up, and then like we can always, the school committee can edit it there as well. So,
Right.
but I do think we understand
Yeah.
that that's important, and that's just the subcommittee saying this has to be looked at, this is important. So I'm fine with that.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm gonna tell folks to come in for the switch.
Yeah, let's do that.